Hey my friend, on this video we're talking about how to do real estate wholesaling. Stay tuned. Hey my friend, this is Ola coming to you live from my myEmpirePRO studios. We're on the road. I'm in Long Island, New York. My home is New Jersey. But anyway, on this video we're talking about how to do real estate wholesaling. On top of that, I have a question, a long ass question that we're going to cover. We're going to touch and work on it together here on this video. So make sure you watch this video all the way till the end. And anytime I say anything that makes any sense to you in this video, please do me a favor, smash the like button. Don't smash it more than once. Just make sure it lit blue and you're good to go. So let's get into today's question. Let's see what's going on here. So it says, I got a question about numbers on the property I have under contract. It is a $3,800 square footage fourplex. Two comps, that's comparables. If you don't know what that means, two comparables that are one block over and literally around the corner are $154,000 and $150,000. One that sold for $154,000 is 5,000 square feet. But the one that sold for $150,000 has, I don't understand, 100 square feet more, 100 square feet more. There you go. More than the one I have under contract. Okay. So that means 3,900. The one he has under contract is 3,800 square feet, right? The one of the comps is 5,000 square feet and another comp is 3,900 square feet. I came up with an ARV of $130,000 to $140,000, so a little bit less, right? And but other investors tell me it's $100,000 ARV. I don't understand how, because this property is in the middle of those two comparables I just mentioned. Let me explain that to you, okay? But before I explain that to you, let me talk about how to do real estate wholesaling, okay? How to do real estate wholesaling. How to do real estate wholesaling, when you ask me that question, I'm thinking you want to know the whole process from A to Z, okay? The best thing I can tell you is to make sure you download my book, smartrealestatewholesaling.com, okay? But maybe in about 1 minute, 30 seconds to 1 minute, let me explain. The idea is you find motivated sellers, okay? And then when you find motivated sellers, they have a piece of property that they must absolutely sell. They don't want to sell. That's two different things, okay? If they want to sell, they go to a realtor, okay? They list the property on the market for 60 days to 100 days, and at some point they'll get full price for their home. They have all the time in the world. They staged the home, they put furniture, they cleaned out, they made it look nice because they understand that the property must pass the emotional test. A buyer must fall in love with the property and visualize a home, right, before they buy. They get that part. So they staged the property, they made it look good, and they listed it with a realtor, and they did showings, right? Every Saturday, every Sunday, people come through the property, they clear up the room, they clear up the baby's room, make it look good, they paint it up, right? They change the carpet, and they are ready to sell the property. The property is worth $200,000 after repair. They spent $50,000 on the property, and now they're looking for their full $200,000. That's a conventional situation, but that's not what you do in real estate wholesaling, okay? What you do in wholesaling real estate is this seller is motivated, they don't have the time, they need to get rid of the property assets. The property may need some work, they don't have the time to put in the work, they don't care about how much they get for it. The property is on their financial books and is hurting everything else going on in their life. They must get rid of the property. And you are the person that's going to help them get rid of the property. That's the idea of wholesaling. How are you going to do that? You put it under contract for 65% of the after repair value minus the cost of repair. So for example, if the property is worth $200,000, right? 65, that means after repair. If you fixed it and everything looks good and it's worth $200,000, right? So your offer to this owner would be 65% of that. 65% of $200,000 is $130,000. Now, why would they want to get rid of a $200,000 home for $130,000? Number one is time. They don't have time to wait on the market for 100 days and basically guessing and playing the gambling game. And a lot of times properties will finish the 100 days terms on the listing agreement and it will still not sell, right? Because there's no guarantees, right? And then it becomes an expired listing. On top of that, they've wasted time, right? Time is worth more than money, right? So the number one reason why they'll be willing to get rid of that property at $130,000 is because time. You're guaranteeing right now that you're putting the house under contract, and you're able to do that because you know that at the Real Estate Investors Association Club, online, in different places, there are people willing to pay $140,000 for that deal, $150,000 for that deal, right? You know there are people willing to pay that right now. So you put it under contract for $130,000. What if the property needs $50,000 worth of repairs? Well, you have to deduct that $50,000 from the $130,000. That's how you do it, okay? You take that $50,000, you deduct it from the 130, which is 65%, right? So it's actually 65% minus the cost of repair, estimated cost of repair. So that brings you to what? That brings you to $80,000. So your maximum allowable offer on that deal is $80,000. You offer $80,000 to the homeowner and they say, you know what, I need to get rid of this property. We need to move. We don't want to deal with this. I heard the property is worth 100. I heard the property is worth whatever, but let's just do this deal. But you know that it's worth $200,000. You've done your research and you know that this property is worth at least $200,000. So you offered $80,000. They said, no, I just want 85. And then you said, okay, sure, no problem. And then you put it under contract. And the idea is you take that contract and you go sell it to an investor who is willing to put in the work and put the house back on the market and sell it for $200,000. Typically, they will make money, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 from doing that work, for adding value to that property and then selling it. We're all in it because there's money to be made when you find deals like that. You find a deal, you fund a deal with an investor money, okay? And that's how to do wholesaling real estate. So with you fully understanding that if you need to rewind the video and watch it multiple times. In addition to that, make sure you subscribe to this channel because I have about over 450 videos explaining this, okay? So make sure you're subscribed because I release video on a daily basis, okay? Now, let's go in deep and look at this question a little bit closer, all right? Because we have a question here that I read earlier, and let's dissect it. So let's go over it again. I got a question about numbers on a property I have under contract. So remember, you put the house under contract, right? It's a $3,800 square feet fourplex. Two comparables, okay? You will hear comps a lot in the industry. Comps is simply comparables. It means a property that looks similar, that's within 1 mile radius, that was sold within the last 6 months, okay? Anything outside of those parameters, right? Outside of those, of the radius of 1 mile, is basically not a good comp, okay? So according to him, he's saying he has two, I'm going to assume that he has two good comps, okay? One sold in the last 6 months within 1 mile radius for $154,000. The other one sold for $150,000. Now, if you're in the United States, right, most properties in the same area look alike. They're close enough, usually, okay? But sometimes there are certain special situations that the property all in the area are not alike, or one is beyond 1 mile, the next house is more than 1 mile radius. That's a special situation. If I were you and you're a newbie or you're a wholesaler, I would avoid such situations totally. If you don't have enough data to back your numbers up, don't waste your time. Go to areas where there's market moving all the time because you stand a better chance of making money. If you check Zillow and there's not enough data to back what you think the property is worth, don't bother about it. This is a volume game. This is a numbers game. You need to have a pipeline of leads coming in all the time so you don't waste your time on a situation that doesn't have enough data, okay? Because this is a game. There's a chapter in my book, Smart Real Estate Wholesaling, about data collection. Your ability to understand that concept, you need to go read that chapter. I think it's chapter 6 or 7. Data collection is a big part of the game. You need to understand it. Download the book. It's absolutely for free. And make sure you read and understand that chapter, okay? All right, so So he goes, so $150,000. Now, if I found two comps around the block and it's 150, for me, that's $150,000 worth. That's how I go. That's how I roll, and it works for me. Okay. So it goes, one that sold for 154. Okay, the one that sold for $154,000. These are the comps. Now remember comparables. The one that sold for $154,000 is 5,000 square feet, but the one that sold for $150,000 has 100 square feet more than the one that I have under contract, the subject property. We call it the subject property. So the property you're trying to figure out the value is the subject property, right? So that one has 100 more than the 3,800 of the subject property. That means it's 3,900 square feet. So per what he's saying right here, the subject property is a little bit less. It's a smaller property than the comparables. But to me, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, if it's in the same area, I'm a wholesaler. I'm not looking for completely accurate numbers. Okay, that's not your job. You're not a real estate appraiser. You're estimating values. That's what you're doing. Okay, so your job is to give an estimate, and you let the buyers do their due diligence. Okay, but watch this. He goes, I came up with an ARV. That means after repair value. Okay, if you want to know what ARV is, search on YouTube for ARV, Ola Talks, and I have tons of videos on that. Okay, all right. I came up with an after repair value of $130,000 to $140,000, but other investors tell me it's $100,000 ARV. What does that tell you? Okay, now they are trying to buy. When you're in the position, you're the one trying to buy. Of course, you're supposed to underestimate. Okay, you're supposed to look at worst case scenario. That's your job because you're the buyer. You're trying to buy as low as possible. So it's your responsibility to convince the seller that the property is worth less. And if you can find situations around the home to prove that, you do that. Say that needs repair, that needs repair. That's outdated. That's outdated. You do that when you're trying to buy the property or you're trying to put the property under contract for as low possible price as possible. So now you can't blame them for saying the property is worth $100,000. As a matter of fact, that's really none of your business. That's their business. Your number, because now you're in a position of trying to sell the contract. You're trying to sell the contract. You find comparables for 150. Your value is 150. If you've agreed to yourself, you said, me, self, this property is worth 130, right? Then it's worth 130. Don't allow investors to beat that number down for you, because they will do that all day long for rightful reasons, because again, they're in the buyer position. You stick with your number and work on building your buyers list so that you can create bidding wars so that people don't play that kind of game with you. If they know that you bring volume to the game, they're not going to play that kind of game with you. If somebody said that property is not worth 130, it's worth 100. Let time prove that. Once the contract expires and you couldn't find a buyer, you've proven them right. And it's okay. You go back to the table and renegotiate. But if everyone else is saying, if one person comes to the table and says it's worth 100, I don't know, that means they're interested. Number one, they're interested. Don't worry about them, saying no, it's worth 150. Have two comps. Because again, you're dealing in numbers, you're not dealing with emotions. And they are dealing with emotions because they're trying to buy. And not a bad emotion, but they have to put that to play and make you feel guilty. Don't worry about that. Just say, I have two comparables. These are the comparables, and keep it moving. As a matter of fact, advertise the contract with the comparables. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. They can see the market. Sometimes you have to bring their attention to certain MLS numbers so they can see that there are actual comps to back your numbers up. Okay, so once they know that your properties move fast, they're not going to play that game with you. But you need to understand where they're coming from. They are in the buyer position. You're in the seller position. Stick to your guns. You don't have anything at stake anyway, unless you're putting $2,000 down for down payment, which I told you in another video to never do that, right? I never, ever do that. Okay, all right. So make sure that you are positioned in the position of power all the time. Do your numbers. Make sure your number is good. Stick to your numbers. If time proves your number to be wrong, go back to the drawing table and reassess. It's okay. With time, your numbers will become more and more on point. But again, remember that your job is not to be an appraiser. Okay, you don't want to be, square footage means $10. No, don't do all that. Just do comparables. For me right now, this number would have been easily 150. You said it's 130. Maybe you know better. Maybe you're appraiser on the side, maybe you know better is 130, sure, but stick to your guns, okay? When it comes to the wholesaling game, stick to your number, 130, 140, so be it. Go with the higher end because you're the seller now. It's 140. Stick with it and don't flinch. Don't worry about it. Just worry about building your buyers list, and the rest of it will take care of itself. All right, and I covered this in details in the book as well too, Smart Real Estate Wholesaling. So make sure you download the book. It's absolutely for free, and there's audiobooks and there's paperback if you want it. Just go to that link, smartrealestatewholesaling.com. Hopefully you've been enlightened and educated, and I will see you on the next episode, and peace.